The Dore Lectures on Mental Science. By Thomas Troward. Lecture 11. The Shepherd and the Stone. Part 1 of 2. The metaphor of the shepherd and the sheep is of constant occurrence throughout the Bible and naturally suggests the idea of the guiding, guarding, and feeding both of the individual sheep and of the whole flock, and it is not difficult to see the spiritual correspondence of these things in a general sort of way. But we find that the Bible combines the metaphor of the shepherd with another metaphor, that of the stone, and at first sight the two seem rather incongruous. From thence is the shepherd the stone of Israel, says the Old Testament. Genesis. Verse 49. Chapter 24. And Jesus calls himself both the Good Shepherd and the stone which the builders rejected. The shepherd and the stone are thus identified, and we must therefore seek the interpretation in some conception which combines the two. A shepherd suggests personal care for the welfare of the sheep, and an intelligence greater than theirs. A stone suggests the idea of building, and consequently of measurement, adaptation of parts to whole, and progressive construction according to plan. Combining these two conceptions, we get the idea of the building of an edifice whose stones are persons, each taking their more or less conscious part in the construction, thus a building, not constructed from without, but self-forming by a principle of growth from within under the guidance of a supreme wisdom permeating the whole and conducting it stage by stage to ultimate completeness. This points to a divine order in human affairs with which we may more or less consciously cooperate, both to our personal advantage and also to the furtherance of the great scheme of human evolution as a whole, the ultimate purpose being to establish in all men that principle of the octave to which I have already alluded, and in proportion as some adumbration of this principle is realized by individuals and by groups of individuals, they specialize the law of race development, even though they may not be aware of the fact, and so come under a specialized working of the fundamental law, which thus differentiates them from other individuals and nationalities, as by a peculiar guidance, producing higher developments which the merely generic operation of the law could not. Now if we keep steadily in mind that, though the purpose, or law of tendency, or the originating spirit must always be universal in its nature, it must necessarily be individual in its operation, we shall see that this universal purpose can only be accomplished through the instrumentality of specific means. This results from the fundamental proposition that the universal can only work on the plane of the particular by becoming the individual and particular, and when we grasp the conception that the merely generic operation of the creative law has now brought the human race as far as it can, that is to say, it has completely evolved the merely natural genus Homo, it follows that if any further development is to take place, it can only be by the cooperation of the individual himself. Now it is the spread of this individual cooperation that the forward movement of the Spirit is leading us to, and it is the gradual extension of this universal principle that is alluded to in the prophecy of Daniel regarding the stone cut out without hands that spreads until it fills the whole earth. Daniel verse 2. Chapter 34 and 44. According to the interpretation given by Daniel, this stone is the emblem of a spiritual kingdom, and the identity of the stone and the shepherd indicates that the kingdom of the stone must be also the kingdom of the shepherd, and the Master, who identified himself with both the stone and the shepherd, emphatically declared that this kingdom was, in its essence, an interior kingdom, the kingdom of heaven is within you. We must look for its foundation therefore, in a spiritual principle or mental law inherent in the constitution of all men but waiting to be brought into fuller development by more accurate compliance with its essential requirements, which is precisely the method by which science has evoked powers from the laws of nature which were undreamt of in former ages, and in like manner the recognition of our true relation to the universal spirit, which is the source of all individual being, must lead to an advance both for the race and for the individual such as we can at present scarcely form the faintest idea of, but which we dimly apprehend through the intuition and speak of as the new order. The approach of this new order is everywhere making itself vaguely felt, it is, as the French say, in the air, and the very vagueness and mystery attending it is causing a feeling of unrest as to what form it may assume. But to the student of spiritual law this should not be the case. He knows that the form is always the expression of the Spirit, and therefore, since he is in touch with the forward movement of the Spirit, he knows that he himself will always be harmoniously included in any form of development which the great forward movement may take. This is the practical and personal benefit arising from the realization of the principle which is symbolized under the twofold metaphor of the shepherd and the stone. And in all those new developments which are perhaps even now within measurable distance, we can rest on the knowledge that we are under the care of a kind shepherd, and under the formation of a wise master builder. Lecture 11. The Shepherd and the Stone. End of Part 1 of 2. Need help understanding Troward's teachings? The Thomas Troward lectures contain very deep and powerful information, but to get the most out of them, require repeated listening and in-depth study. Troward had only one personal student, Genevieve Behrend, and her book Your Invisible Power distills the essence of Troward's lectures in a concise and easy-to-understand format. For many, this is a much preferred way to learn Troward's teachings. Click the link below this video to visit yourinvisiblepower.us and learn more about Genevieve Behrend's recently updated book.
Click the link in the description below for a chance to win 10 classic best-selling Law of Attraction books